Captain's log. So I guess I can report on the day before if I'm doing a captain's log. So yesterday, I woke up at 4:44 a.m. I actually woke up at like 4:41 a.m. and then my alarm clock went off at 4:44 a.m. And when I wake up, I go to the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. For thine is the kingdom, and honor, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And then I'll repeat that thing. And, I'm basically trying to stir up within me a reconnection with God's will. I'm trying to seek out synchronization with God's will just right off the start. Now, it's not like it just works. I'll try repeating the Lord's Prayer. I try to remember Jesus. Jesus taught us this prayer. And then like right now, I'm doing it. Like even as I talk about doing it yesterday in the morning, I'm doing it right now and trying to get better at it. And what occurs to me even right now is there's a remembering my commitment, my trust, and for real, like each person's level of commitment, degree of commitment, the degree of trust, the degree of orientation and harmony with Jesus, the King of Kings. It's going to be different for each person, and there's a preparation and a discipleship that's happening so that our commitment and our trust and our alignment are better, that it grows. And I'm saying all this because of what happened yesterday, which, I end up making coffee. I like to use a French press every morning. So every morning it's the Lord's Prayer. Every morning it's a French press. Sometimes Kim makes the coffee. Sometimes I make the coffee. But yesterday morning I made the coffee because I had a place to be. I had to drive 45 minutes to be there for the, it's called a freedom group. It's a kind of a curriculum at my mega church, Church of the Highlands. And I think the overall goal of Freedom Group is that you experience it's almost like a deliverance ministry, but they're not going to call it that. But you would experience a kind of deliverance and setting free, which is interesting for me to call it that, even though when I arrived there, I ended up sitting alongside a guy who went to seminary, who teaches things like, he believes things like, once you are saved, the Holy Spirit enters you and then you're protected from possession, oppression, and things like that. And so I don't, it's, what I find is I have to learn the language of other people and then use that language. And so for him, deliverance ministry is, there's a different language, a different vocabulary, a different, it's a very similar playbook, but the names and the words used in that playbook will be different. And I think this is what happens in any kind of religious practice which works, because we humans, we do end up being kind of limited by things that happen to us in life that we can be set free from, and so our lives can get better. And there's kind of a secular frame, there's these other kind of frames with other words, but there will be similar playbooks that have various degrees of success. So I'm going, but we're in week 4 of the Freedom. Week 4. I've got a book. Freedom. So we were in week 4. So I went to the same Freedom group last season. We have small group seasons, 3 a year. And I went to like 2 of them in the middle, maybe a handful. And I think the thing I wanted to be free from last season that I identified, that I wrote down, was pride. And I think even as I've revisited this book this season, I scratched through pride and wrote down, free from, this. It's kind of like what could be called social anxiety, but I've been really looking at it and ruminating on it, and it's still connected to pride. So yes, that's what I saw yesterday. Is like it was kind of prideful for me to strike through, my issue with pride. On my way to the Freedom group, I'm thinking about work. Like, I was made and shaped to think that I could be a good helper, teacher, student. I can be good at. I was shaped to think that I could do anything and be very good at anything. And so, the pride comes from somewhere, right? It's not like I wanted the pride. I just was kind of find myself with it. Like, was it my fault that I end up with pride? And so I'm thinking about work. I think about, I'm a soccer coach and I'm an employee. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I go to small group. I go to church, and I'm doing some kind of a YouTube thing. I've got relationships with God and with people. There's a bunch of relationships. And so in each one, I want to help. So I have good intentions. And I'm thinking about work. I see mistakes that people make, and I want to help with what God has given me a vision to see, and I want to use that in a way which is helpful. But then something came into my mind as I'm driving in my new car. I got a new car, and I've actually never enjoyed driving until I got the new car, so that's quite the experience to actually enjoy driving a car. I never really enjoyed driving a car so much until I got this new car. It's like I can set Super Cruise, and it's basically going, and I'm keeping an eye on things, and then I'm thinking about work, and I'm imagining the conversation I want to have with the head and the leadership, the heads and the leadership. And then this sentence comes to me. It's something I would say, and it's you don't know anything. And then, boom, the peace of God just disappears. And it's what's in its place when the peace of God isn't there. There's a anxiety, a nervousness, a fear. There's something that happens, and then I was like, it was revealed to me that what I had just kind of said in my mind in an imaginary situation was a lie. I had said a lie, and because all of those people, they actually are very smart and they know things. So for me to have said, you don't know anything in an imaginary world, it was a lie, and then I had to realize it was a lie, and then boom, it's like I want to do these clashing cymbals, like a cannon explosion. I don't know if you guys ever heard a cannon. My father-in-law has a few cannons. They're very loud. It might be why I'm wearing hearing aids. So the intensity, the potency of these transitions and feelings are just like, I'm at peace. I woke up and I'm praying, and it's like I've been in a temple and a monastery, so peaceful, and then some imaginary thing happens, and boom, the peace just, bam, it's gone. And then I see that someone spoke a lie. A lie came into my head, and then I realized it was a lie, and then it's like the transition there that happened within the course of like just 1 minute was so powerful. And so I get there to the small group. I actually get there 30 minutes early. I'm the first one there. I thought for some reason I was confused about what time I needed to be there. And so I start going through this week 4. And week 4 is called Spiritual Order. As believers, we long to live lives of fellowship with God. But while this is our desire, life and fellowship with God does not come naturally for us. Since the fall in the garden, mankind has battled a sin nature that wars against our desire to be holy. And so, I guess I could read the next sentence. I mean, there's sentences there's things I highlight that stick out. The Apostle Paul said that there is an internal struggle that goes on between the desire to do right and the natural tendency to do wrong. So like even there, it's like the Apostle Paul, like my pride gets in the way there. I want to be Apostle Gavin, and so there can be a pride where everybody's paying attention to Apostle Paul, and then I will, because of my pride, I won't see the good in Paul. And I've experienced that over the last few years in interacting with the Bible. My relationship with Paul has improved and grown. My respect for Paul has improved and grown. And so, yeah, I just point that out. Anyways, that's what this week 4 was about. And, when I don't want to talk about what happens. It's like what happens at Freedom Group, right? Because we need to be able to trust our fellows in fellowship. And so there's a way to talk about what happens at Freedom Group. And so for me, I, confess uh, to these men in the Freedom Group that I wrestle with pride. Is one of the things that I say, I end up saying. And, this guy who goes to seminary who's right next to me, he is he teaches about the sin nature that we just mentioned, right? So that's the language that they're using. So we're talking about our sin nature. This automatically gets in the way for like a Orthodox Jew to talk about our sin nature. I feel like Orthodox Judaism has similar things like the evil inclination. They have a Hebrew noise for it. For me to even try to say it would reveal my. Might be funny for me to just try to say it from memory, or to look it up or whatnot. But it's the evil inclination, and so they do. So while they play a bunch of, they have their own words and playbooks with words, but there's a playbook with words, and in Christianity we use this. We use the fall in Genesis as a story which reminds us of sin, our natural tendency towards sin, or as in Judaism they would, I think, call it a sin nature. In secular psychology, they might call it trauma. Might be connected to some phrase, generational sin. So there are these real problems that we all have, that we all face, that are just natural. And so we didn't actually keep to the curriculum in our week 4. It's more free flowing. One of the older men, he posed the question. It's like, why don't we hear sermons about our spirit? Because if we are spiritual beings having an experience in a physical body, we are eternal spiritual beings having an experience in a physical body. Why aren't we learning more about the nature of who we are, our eternal spirit? And so he was really pressing on this question, this topic. What occurred to me that I did not say in the small group was that there is an order in which we develop. And I did actually mention this in a bit of a parable, and I'm not a very good storyteller, but I mentioned to my group, I said the only reason I'm here is because of an alcoholic. Shout out my brother, and not my spiritual, not my physical brother, my biological brother, but my spiritual brother, who and what I mentioned about And for alcoholics is that because we have these, one of the people in the group wants to talk about the issue of the male eyes and like the female body and how powerful that can be and what we can do about it. And so I mentioned the alcoholic because what I learned is that an alcoholic can go through this developmental process where they have to end up getting rid of alcohol completely, but then after some seasons they may be there to help other alcoholics, and they will keep alcohol in their house so that when the alcoholic is having withdrawals, they will be able to receive some small dose of alcohol so that they don't die. And so there's this developmental process in which the alcoholic, basically their body is addicted, and their body has to be given time and to overcome their physical dependence on the alcohol. And then it's almost like their mind, their spirit has to, their soul, I don't know what the words to use, but then there's something other than the body that has to, where they have to stay away from the thing that was so alluring. I use that word alluring, like casting a lure with a fishing rod into a hole trying to catch a fish. It's something so alluring to what they would call in this book, and Christians would call our sin nature, our worldly body. And then at some point, so there can be a healing of the body, a healing of this other, immaterial, non-physical something, or some things, might be plural. And then only then there's this now helping others who were suffering in a similar way, this capacity. So there's a preparation in order. There's this path. It's a pattern in which we can the thing that was about us that was destructive is transformed such that we can be of service to others who were wrestling with the same thing. And so the parable, which I tried to share in a small group, is trying to point at a teaching that is this greater teaching that I don't have time to. I don't want to just take up everybody's time in this small group. I'm not leading this thing. I'm just trying to be helpful in the small group. And so I was able to kind of provide a little parable, try to point at some bigger thing that if anyone there suspected that I might be a good teacher, that they could kind of try to reconnect with me. But it's interesting, I'll give that parable and that teaching, and then soon after this other man will kind of try to raise the question, well, why doesn't the church teach these spiritual truths? And the thing is this is the reason I love my church. It's not Eastern Orthodoxy where they claim to have the original, and where Eastern Orthodoxy will say that the Pope was the first Protestant, and then the Catholic Church says they've got the goods, they've got the true, the original, the pure. My megachurch is is it's like the place where Jesus can meet prostitutes and tax collectors. And so when the prostitutes and tax collectors meet Jesus, he's not going to be teaching them the same things that he teaches the disciples that have been following him for 3 years. And so there's I've heard the word unfolding, maybe there's a word unveiling, revealing, there's revelation, a Greek word for that. There's discipleship, preparation. And so there's this challenge, especially challenging on the YouTube internet, of, paying attention to the individual and meeting them where they are at and helping them with their next step. There's a skill in being able to do that. And it's been really helpful for me to try and coach children's soccer. I was good enough to play soccer at a small college. I was good enough to kick a football at a small college, or to run track at a small college, throw javelin at a small college. I could have done many things at a small college, including play in the band, play an instrument. So, pretty good at many things. But then I'm coaching 7-year-olds. And the temptation is to go in and just show them how it's done. And then get frustrated when they can't do it. It's like, what? I don't know how I could have been so self-centered, to be like that. But yeah, I did that. But I didn't do it very long. I'm just like, it's not working. Why don't they get it? And I've always tried to be honest. It's like about whether or not my intentions are matching up with reality. And it's like, I have good intentions. Nobody knows this, but yeah, I've got great intentions. I know it. I think my wife knows it. And even she, I don't think she knows it as well as I do. But like how much I care. But among humans, she knows better than everyone else. And only God knows my intentions. But then I try to, I'm aware that I'm so aware of how much we can deceive ourselves, having embarrassed myself and been humiliated many times. And so I try to be honest. That's the best strategy I've come to, is like to be honest, to try to, like that confession thing, and being it is to be honest with ourselves, to confess to ourselves. It's like being honest and confessing to God. We don't want to deceive ourselves, which we can do. I've been listening to my children, my family, tell lies. It's funny, one of the things I said twice yesterday in YouTube comments was, to play politics is to play king. And the thing is my wife and I are playing king in our house. Now, to the extent that I can align with and partner with Jesus, that ideally that Jesus will end up being the king in my house. And so, yeah, there's a play in King that my wife and I do in our house, and we try to become more like the King of Kings. We try to have that King of Kings within us in our house. And what old guy from seminary told me after this small group yesterday, I stayed there another hour. He invited me after that small group to go to another one. Church of the Highlands is a multi-location church organization, and I got invited to go to the campus 10 miles away for another small group, and probably in hindsight it's like I think I could have went and it would have been fine, maybe good, maybe really good, but I don't think it would have been bad. And so when invited, it's a nice practice to accept invitations, especially if they are good people. And I just got, and interacting with this guy who went to seminary, he's older than me, everything he was saying was good. I didn't hear him say anything that I was like, I need to teach this person something. I bumped into somebody where I did not feel like I needed to correct them. That was nice. I've been looking for a mentor. Maybe I found one, and maybe I should have went when invited to go, and maybe I will to go next Wednesday. I have the freedom to, on Wednesdays, to kind of extend my work day so I can start later and end later, and I can take advantage of that. And this guy, he said to me, because I told him how I was confessing. For example, I confessed that, I want to be liked by people, and I'm different. I'm so different, and it causes me to have some fear and reservation, and they responded well to that. Very encouraging and inviting, welcoming. But they don't know, but I kind of told it, you don't know what I did not say. I'm trying to say what God would want me to say. And so, but they don't know the things that come into my mind that are like a lie that I don't say. Or the things that come into my mind that would like cause someone to stumble. And how I'm trying to learn to get better with this discernment. And so the guy was next to me, he, at the end of the day, he's so hard to talk about this stuff. So I told them how when I didn't even know what grace was. When I first became a Christian, I did not know what grace was. And I only learned, so I've been a Christian for about 2 years. And I've only learned what grace was maybe in the last couple months. I maybe told them in the last year. To which, one person tells me kind of what our head pastor has taught, which is good, about truth without grace and grace without truth. It's like you got to have both. And it makes sense. Truth without grace is like mean. Maybe there's better words, my pastor says. And grace without truth is like, it's kind of naive. And it's good to have both. And I told him, I said, that makes sense. I said, but the grace of God is something that is beyond the rationality of this grace without truth and truth without grace. The grace of God is something you can experience. And I did not know what the grace of God was until it was taken away from me I had it taken away for a week. It was a week, 1 week. I had it taken away. And it's like, to call it being taken away is wrong, because that's not the way it works. The guy went to seminary next to me, the way he described it is that Jesus is a perfect gentleman and will let you take that throne. He's a perfect gentleman. If you want that throne, he'll let you have it. Perfect gentleman. And this gives me goosebumps. It's yes. And then we take that throne, and then we sin in our own power, and then we can repent, realign. And that's what had happened to me, on the drive to the small group, was that within the course of 1 minute, the peace and grace of God left. I recognized the lie. It was revealed, and the peace and grace of God returned, all within 1 minute. So it can take, like I had 1 whole week without the peace and grace of God, within the last few months, which allowed me to kind of really appreciate and recognize what I had. I recognized that grace I had that I didn't even know I had. I'd kind of taken it for granted. I've heard it said, in our relationships with our wives, our children, our families, living in this country at this time, life itself, what we have been given, we can take these things for granted because it just becomes normal, mundane, and so it was that being separated, having that grace and peace removed from me for such an extended period of time, that gulf, that chasm, having that allowed me to really recognize what grace is, what God's grace is. And it's something that you can go look up, the Mary's Room thought experiment, where it's a thought experiment where Mary is basically like raised in a room with no color, and she is taught what the color red is. Like, she reads about it, and she can like look at the measurements, and then the question is when she is introduced to the color red for the first time, does she learn something new through that experience? And the answer is yes. And so this is like these things that are available to us. There are things available to us that are very good fruit, which, in attempting to describe it with words, the words cannot contain the knowledge which is gained when you experience it. So it's tricky. It's tricky because we can do the mistake of thinking that we have grace when we don't. We can make the mistake of thinking that we have salvation when we don't. We can make the mistake of thinking that we know God when we don't. This happens. And then even because these things are not binary, we can, even when we get a taste of knowing God, taste of grace, taste of salvation, we can make the mistake of thinking that we got it and not realizing that God has more, that there's more. We can know God more, and we can know God's grace more, because the experience of God and the experience of His grace can grow such that there's new things that get revealed. There's this discipling that happens. In the after party to the small group, one of the things which was said was talking about, believing in Jesus, and this was after I just said, I didn't even know what grace meant, and then it was said this thing about believing in Jesus, and I'm like, I didn't even know what the word believe, I didn't know what that meant. And I told them, I said, I came to the realization that it meant commit, like you would commit in marriage. But what I didn't tell them is that, and what I told my wife this morning, is that it's commit and trust. And it's I'm so it's greater than just committing, this word believe. And one of the things the guy who went to seminary told me, it was a very good little parable story, because I was telling him about how I learned these things. And there was the kind of recognition that people learn in different ways. And he said, well, if some people, if they want to clean their room, he didn't say Jordan Peterson, but I'll say Jordan Peterson. If we want to clean our room, some people will go to their drawer and take something out and then go take it to Goodwill and give it away. Whereas other people will take everything and dump it on the bed and then take the things they want to keep and put it back. And so I think I'm one of those who, like, throughout life has been like trained to just dump it all on the bed or the floor and then start from there. And it's kind of my approach to my relationship with God and Christianity has been this: okay, I'm gonna reject it all. I rejected Jesus at 17. I said, no, I got this. I'll be a better Messiah than you were. Don't worry, I got this. And then there were moments of like asking for help from Jesus, even though I had said I was going to reject him, and then experiencing miracles, and then conveniently forgetting them and still thinking that I'm better than Jesus. That happened. And I think eventually I was shown, I need a team. I can't do this by myself. And I started looking for help with other people. And then I eventually got to the point where it's like, I was humble enough to say, why would I turn down help from Jesus? Like, if Jesus is real, why would I turn down his help? And so I baptized myself, and was like, I don't know, my 30th birthday and something like that. And maybe I was 32. I don't know. But I was humble enough to baptize myself, which is funny because that's a prideful thing to do. And say, Jesus, if you're there, I'm cool if you help me. It's cool if you help me out. And then things do start happening. All of a sudden, I've got a baby on the way. Becoming a father, like, that's kind of, I get goosebumps. Like, becoming a father, it's like, if there's this prayer, our Father art in heaven, it's like becoming a father does reveal things about fatherhood, what it's like to be a father, like the challenges of being a father. And then years later, after continuing to try and find people. I called myself Hero Looking for Group. This YouTube channel was called Write in Gavin Palmer, like WRITE, because I wasn't wanting to get into politics. And I say that phrase earlier, to play politics is to play king. I'm playing king this whole time, and I wanted to be the hero looking for group because I knew I couldn't do it by myself and I needed help. And, I ended up finding people, and I find my spiritual brother. Didn't know it at the time, and he loves me, which Jesus taught. They will know you are my followers because you will love each other. And that's what it took. To have I'd never been loved by any man like a good father loves their children. I've never experienced that. I feel bad saying that about my father, but you can only know the love that you received. And he doesn't know our Father in heaven's love. And that's key. That's really key in this moment. A Charlie Kirk moment, where I listened to someone who became a Christian about the same time. He went down a Catholic path. And should I call it down a Catholic path? Maybe he went up a Catholic path. They call it the high church. Maybe he went up the Catholic path. I don't want to toss in I don't want to color that with any judgment, which is my point. Because the man who did this responded to Charlie Kirk, and the way he described it was that good and evil has become so obvious. Something I've said about, it's like when people say things are obvious, it's because they haven't really thought about it and they aren't able to explain it. And I'm sure he is describing some truth, while also our Lord said, "Forgive them, Father, because they know not what they have done." And similarly, I'll say about my biological father, it's like he doesn't know God's love. And how can we expect people who don't know God's love to be capable of loving, right? And so it's easy to forget what we were like. It's kind of like this grace thing that I received, and then I take for granted. This might be the reason I had it taken away for 1 week, is so that I get goosebumps. It's like maybe I can try and remind all the Christians out there, all the people who know our Father's love out there. And I say that second part because I don't want to be the judge. A lot of Christians want to say that the Christians go to heaven, but Jesus said, "None come to the Father except through me." But so it's up to Jesus whether or not these Jews or Muslims or atheists go to heaven. So stop with all that only Christians go to heaven stuff. So I say, these people who know our Father's love can take it for granted, that love, and they don't remember or don't know what it's like to have God's love and grace just kind of pulled away and snatched away from them, and what it's like to be that human who is angry and resentful and depressed and anxious and scared. They don't remember any of that. That's what I get goosebumps. That's what I got to experience for 1 week. And so when I hear people who know God's love calling these other people evil, condemning them. It sounds like you're condemning them. And then it's like, what? Because I can point at the things that Charlie Kirk was doing. I can point at Charlie Kirk's sin, right? I can. We're not perfect. And pointing out people's sins is easy because we're not perfect. And if we don't know God's love, which loves all of us imperfect people, that has already forgiven all of us imperfect people. If we don't know that, we don't remember that, and if we can't love our enemies enough to remember what it's like to not know God's love, like that's a hard move, but I ask you to do it, then we can then begin condemning others and talking about how evil they are. And it can get out of hand, and it can even create a distance in our alignment to our Father if we're not very careful. And so I've had a hard time kind of interacting with people who are paying attention to the world. And I've had a hard time with that for over a decade because I've kind of been a hermit. I have I've not been interacting with the world, in the world for over a decade, for a long time. I've practiced. Like even when I was 17 and told Jesus to back off, I was practicing trying to do what God wanted me to do with a pride and a confidence and a teenager cockiness, and a seriousness and a determination that most people don't have, which led me to see my own mistakes and failures along the way. It's like, do I say the thing that Republicans are doing wrong? Charlie Kirk kind of leaned Republican, supported Republican. Do I need to say the things that they are doing wrong and try to condemn them because they are humans who sin? Where people who don't know God's love can obsess and focus on the sin of the Republicans to the point where their anger and resentment leads them to want to destroy their enemy and celebrate the destruction of their enemy. It's like, that is totally natural. It's like, can I repeat? Week 4, what I just read? As believers, we long to live lives of fellowship with God, but while this is our desire, life and fellowship with God does not come naturally for us. I think this is true. And, it doesn't come naturally for my biological brother, my biological father. It doesn't come naturally for Charlie Kirk or Charlie Kirk's murderer. It doesn't come naturally for people who want to destroy their enemies and people who want to celebrate the destruction of their enemies. It's like this all God's love, God's attributes, because I know Jews will talk about many of God's attributes. These things don't come naturally. And so, you know, I love my church. Our church provides a space for the prostitutes and the tax collectors to feel welcome. And my church tries to invite into the next step, and then, like Jesus, who is the perfect gentleman and will let you take that throne, go sit on the throne. You know, there are people in my church who are practicing that. What does it look like to have Christ within us and to play at being king, which we have to do, of our house and our cities and communities and collections of cities over large amounts of space that have so many different problems. Like, what does it look like for Christ to incarnate within us? It's hard. It's hard in my own home. And what does it look like when I allow my 5-year-old to take the throne? I mean, the truth is that my 5-year-old is in that throne seat. Like every unbeliever who doesn't know our Father's love is in the throne seat. And what I try to do is I try to provide some kind of a safety net to be there for each. I have many children. If I had just one child, it would be different. But then I have 3 children, and so next thing you know, my 5-year-old is trying to punch my 9-year-old. It's like I want to protect, and teach each one of them, and it's hard. I don't want to overprotect them because I want them to learn. And so sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like my children need a straitjacket. It's like you aren't controlling these things the right way, and you are using them as weapons, and I want to restrain you. And we do that. Seems like every government which has something like king or kings has some way of restraining, up to and including like the taking of lives. And so figuring all this out is difficult. I have a lot of ideas. This is what I tell the people at work. I tell my wife. I tell the people at church, it's like, I've got a lot of ideas. The question is did my ideas help or hurt? And then my Jewish friend Yosef, he basically it's like, we can't know if, when I think I'm doing God's will, he basically is saying we can't know. And I think this is why Yosef leans on tradition and trusts Moses and the tradition around Moses. And that's who he trusts. And, I'm trusting this, what's developing in me with the potency of experiencing peace and grace of God move in order for revelation and preparation and discipleship to happen. That's what I'm doing. I don't have a rabbi. Yosef does. Actually, my rabbi is Jesus. I think Yosef has said that there are better rabbis than Jesus, and then, so I think he would try to point me at, I don't know, maybe Maimonides. But what I've experienced with Jesus has been so transformative that and I haven't, it's better than mushrooms and cannabis and sex and winning and money, and it's been like, it's almost like I was created for Jesus. And I haven't found a reason. I don't have any reason to give up on Jesus and go make Maimonides my rabbi. And they call Jesus my rabbi is it's less than Jesus is my king. And I can explain it. I have explained it to Yosef. But for him to get, I realized at some point, it's like for him to accept Jesus as his king would mean rejection. And so there's something really valuable and beautiful in Judaism that he would, and I think there's a fear of losing that. Similarly, there's something really good and beautiful and valuable in my megachurch, in Jesus, in the Holy Spirit, that I don't want to give up. And Jesus, none of us come to the Lord except through Jesus, and it's like, I think Jesus would welcome Yosef. Like, I don't know. Jesus will decide, not me. But I suspect it will happen based on my interactions with Yosef. So, all right, maybe I can go. I don't know if I'll do another captain's log. I mean, I only talked about yesterday morning. I could spend all day. It might take a week to talk about a whole day. I could spend a year talking about one day. All right, y'all have a good one.